Hello and welcome to the Alter project. Today we'll be extending our capital to the river and make a port for trading ships and travelers to settle. Today we will be building only a portion of the port, focusing around a giant clock tower and the residential buildings surrounding it. Eventually this river is going to look more like a canal sandwiched with a bunch of buildings. So without further ado, let's get started. I began with building the clock tower using normal brick blocks. The tower is the main attraction of the port and is one of the many renowned tourist spots in Alheim. Once I was settled with the location of the clock tower, I then moved on to constructing the basic skeleton of the town. In contrast to the very blockish buildings scattered in Vulgary, I challenged myself to bring diversity by adding, I don't know how to describe, these very diamond-shaped buildings. Now I'd usually hold myself from completing the main focus of the video until later on, but looks like past me couldn't help it. Using brick blocks and polished granite, I designed a Gothic-themed red brick clock tower. When building this structure, I had to browse through the internet for some inspiration, in which I found this lovely clock tower located in Camperdown, Australia. Known as Camperdown Clock Tower or Manifold Clock Tower, it is a beautiful example of a red brick clock tower built in the 1890s. A little fun fact about this clock tower, the people who constructed it used ponies to power a block and tackle to raise the platforms that carried brick and mortar to working level. All day, the ponies walked up and down the avenue in order to pulley the bricks up. With that said, after a couple trial and errors, the clock tower is complete. I then moved on to adding detail to the residential buildings. Like the buildings surrounding Chinatown, I made pointed roofs mimicking the popular European-style roofings seen often in fantasy movies. I wanted this part of the city to be very down-to-earth and fun, like where all the workers drink and have fun after a long day of work. To contribute to the very fancy riverport atmosphere, I incorporated vines, tall streetlights, and balconies as well. Now I'd say that the roof building process was the most tedious part of this build. It felt like doing the same old process over and over again. Believe me, my mind felt numb after decorating all the buildings. So kind me offers this time now to either skip ahead to the main dish of this video, or stay and enjoy the appetizer while listening to some jamming music. Let's do it! Okay, for those who stayed, I hope you enjoyed that quick montage. Before moving on to the next portion of this video, I'd like to explain a few details I implemented while building this part of the port. Through playing around with some of the blocks, I realized that spruce trapdoors can make a window look as if they're open. I also thought it would be a nice addition to have a small space in front of the windows to plant vegetation and flowers as well. Having even a bit of detail can differentiate a building from looking meh to looking good. Structures such as shopping stands and trees are also important elements because they add liveliness to the town as well. Another new asset are the chimneys pointing out of the roofs. I use the classic cobweb technique to depict as if smoke is being emitted out of the chimneys. And with the town finally done, we can move on to the main focus of the video, the port. Ports have been stations of transportation for a very long time. The existence of boats itself originates all the way back to a Neolithic Stone Age in which people hollowed out a tree trunk and rode them. So I'm going to guess that some form of a port existed 8,000 years ago as well. So yeah, ports have been around for a pretty long time, and it's one of those places where we can occasionally go and relax, breathe the watery air, and watch the sunset as the blue body of water slowly changes color to crimson. As many know, a lot of cities around the world have easy access to huge bodies of water. For example, New York, Nagasaki, Sydney, and Venice. It isn't an exaggeration to state that their access to the ocean is what supported their survival all this time. So ports are a big thing, and is a necessity for a capital city like Alheim to thrive. The river that flows through Alheim connects to other large towns such as Durham, Orpheus, Ishram, and Erdest. Alheim sitting in the center of the map makes it a place for merchants all around Alter to gather and conduct business. So I started decorating the port by planting trees and marking a basic outline for where to build a pathway. However, while building, I began questioning how it is possible for a stone pathway to be paved in a wooden dock, and whether the clock tower would be blocking the excellent city view from the other side of the river. So I abandoned the idea of having a pathway on top of the dock and changed the position of the clock tower a few times as well. When I originally built the skeleton for this town, I built this bridge without thinking of much. So on second thought, I decided that the bridge was an unnecessary addition to the port and removed it. Using the space that was left, I attempted to build an installation artwork that ties deeply in with my memories at port. Maybe after a while you may guess what I'm making as well. Time's up. Did you get it? A couple of years ago, that's a lie, a pretty long time ago, maybe when I was in my second year of middle school, I had the privilege of traveling to Naoshima with me and my friend's family. Now I don't recall much of the trip there, but I do clearly remember seeing this massive pumpkin resting at the very end of the port. The giant pumpkin is a famous installation piece in Naoshima and is made by the famous Japanese artist Kusama Yayoi. I've been to many port towns before, such as Sydney and New York in my life, but when hearing the word port, this piece made of fiberglass is the first thing that pops up to my mind. Nature is something that cannot be controlled by anybody. It is probably something we shouldn't be able to control either. However, rarely, there are people who are able to create the illusion as if they are controlling the environment around them, and Kusama Yayoi's yellow pumpkin is one. There is something mystical about it that can only be communicated to the people who stands in the same space as the yellow pumpkin. Now I'm not going to say that my pumpkin is the best recreation ever. A lot of creative energy is needed for this to look like a pumpkin. But I think it is a fair result seeing the limited amount of resources I had, or so I tell myself. Now before moving on to the completion of the port, let's talk a bit about clock towers. Clock towers are interesting, yet not many know the history behind them. Humans have always tried to tell time ever since the prehistoric era, Stonehenge being one potential example. However, it is also hard to imagine that one day humans suddenly invented the clock and decided to place it on top of a huge tower. The earliest confirmed example of a clock tower goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks when they built this white structure known as the Tower of Winds. The Tower of Wind is located within the Agora, which literally means gathering place in Greek. It was a place in Athens where people would gather to enjoy artistic, athletic, and political events. The tower features 8 sundials, and inside is a water clock powered by the water brought down from the Acropolis. However, the creation of the typical clock tower we all know happened in the 17th century. First used only as a tool to notify the townspeople of the time to pray, clock towers used striking clocks that didn't have hands nor dials and only struck sound at a specific time of day. Shortly after, the turret clock was created. A turret clock is a type of clock designed to be mounted high up in the walls of a building. These turret clocks are usually just a larger version of a pendulum clock, which uses weights to swing back and forth in a constant time interval. Clock towers served as an indispensable timekeeping role until the 20th century, when cheap watches were created and sold to the public. I'd like to end this small segment about clock towers by sliding in a small fun fact. According to the Council of Tall Building and Urban Habitat, an international organization that specializes in the field of tall buildings, if less than 50% of structure is occupiable, the structure is considered a tower, and if more than 50% is occupiable, it is considered a building. This concludes my small segment of clock towers. Let's move on. To make the docks look more dock-like, I placed a bunch of storage and cargo as if they were just being imported. I also replaced the oak planks into stripped oak log because I thought they did a better job in depicting a wooden dock. Unsatisfied by the size, I made another wooden layer that extends to where the ships are being anchored at. My initial lazy plan was to finish the video here and leave decorating the docks for another video, but it seems like I got a bit carried away. I tried making a unique version of those huge cargo containers by using colored concrete blocks for the frame and colored stained glass and stained glass panes for the bar design on the wall. I thought the idea of being able to see what is inside the cargo was cool, so I filled the rest of the port with different colored cargoes as well. Besides the colorful cargo, there are also cages containing exotic animals and stacks of wood logs brought from other parts of the nation. I also implemented these cranes used in the industrial sector of Alheim to make the docks look more active, and because it just looks cool. To put the cherry on top, I sprinkled a few more glowstones and lanterns all around town to make the scenery at night breathtaking. And yeah, that's really it. Without wasting any more time, let's move on to the cinematic. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, especially in times like now. Going outside, walking to a river or lake close by, and feeling the breeze can be very refreshing. Sometimes in the future, I'd like to make a video about boats and add them to Alheim Port. Next video, we'll be making a lake. While it may feel a bit repetitive after this video, I've always yearned to have my own log cabin built near a lake, so I'm going to grant my wish now and make it in Minecraft. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. I'll see you soon. Bye!